Hello and thanks for tuning in to this video on the Norwegian covered bond legislation. My name is Michael Cook and I'm the Chief Analyst at the Banking and Capital Markets Division at Finance Norway. I'm also leading the Secretariat for the Norwegian Covered Bond Council, which consists of the largest covered bond issuers in Norway. Today I will shed some light on the revised covered bond legislation, which entered into force in the summer of 2022. But before we look at the specific details, you may want to note some important information. Issuance in Norway is done from entities separate from the parent bank. An issuer can either be owned by a single bank or a group of banks. Norwegian issuance in the past has been based on the legislation for obligasjoner med fortrinnsrett, or OMF as we call it. With the revised Norwegian legislation in place, the Ministry of Finance introduced two types of covered bonds. Firstly, we have OMF Premium, which corresponds to the label European Covered Bond Premium, and consequently the requirements in the CRR and the Covered Bond Directive. Secondly, there is OMF Standard, which corresponds to European covered bonds, i.e. not premium, and where there are softer requirements. To be able to issue bonds under the new legislation, an approval must be given from the FSA, either for issuing OMF Standard or OMF Premium. So far, issuers have only applied for issuing OMF Premium. So as the current market practice only includes OMF Premium, these bonds and the relevant legislation will be the focus of this video. You may also want to note that the FSA is obliged to publish a list of the issuers who has the permit to issue covered bonds under the new framework. This list is available at FSA's homepage, and as I said, it shows that Norwegian issuers currently may only issue OMF Premium bonds. For OMF Premium, the cover pool can only consist of assets that are listed in Article 129 of the CRR. So there is a direct link from Norwegian legislation to the CRR and Article 129. Residential loans are the main assets in Norwegian cover pools. Some has loans secured by commercial property, and one issuer is based on loans and guarantees to the public sector. However, there are no cover pools that are based on ship loans. In addition to the main assets, other types such as derivatives and substitute assets may of course be included in the cover pool. LTV is again based on Article 129 of the CRR. This implies a limit of 80% for residential mortgages and 60% for commercial real estate. It is however specified in the legislation that leisure properties should have an LTV limit of 60%. When it comes to property valuation, a prudent market value shall be set upon inclusion of loans in the cover pool. The credit institution shall establish systems for monitoring subsequent price developments. Most Norwegian issuers make extensive use of a common advanced statistical model for updating valuations on a quarterly basis. There is indeed a minimum OC level required by law. For OMF Premium, there is a requirement of minimum 5% based on a nominal principal. But there is an exception for credit institutions that may only grant loans to or that are guaranteed by the public sector. If so, the issuer will have a requirement of minimum 2%, also based on a nominal principal. In practice, this means that all Norwegian cover pools for issuing OMF Premium except one have an OC requirement of 5%. The primary method for the mitigation of market risk is by the use of derivative hedging instruments. Stress tests are required to test the value cover and the liquidity risk, as well as rate changes. Issuers also typically stress test for declining house prices. For liquidity risk specifically, note that covered bond issued under the new legislation post 8th of July 2022 have objective triggers based on the revised law. This means that when calculating the 180-day liquidity requirement, an issuer may calculate the principal based on the extended maturity date. This is only allowed for soft bullet bonds, which typically is the case for Norwegian covered bonds, but the trigger for maturity extension has to be in line with the wording in the legislation. This means that the maturity may be extended when 1. That the issuer is likely to fail in the near future and there are no reasonable prospects that any alternative measures can prevent the issuer from failing, or 2. That the Ministry of Finance has announced that the issuer has failed. Furthermore, the FSA needs to give its consent before the bond may be extended, and the extension period will then be 12 months. According to the legislation, all issuers and cover pools must be supervised by a cover pool monitor separate from the credit institution. The cover pool monitor must have a license as a state-authorized auditor and cannot be the credit institution's general accountant or internal auditor. This implies that the option in the cover bond directive to have an internal cover pool monitor is not exercised. It is the cover bond issuing institution that appoints the cover pool monitor, and the cover pool monitor will annually provide a statement on its assessments to the FSA. The cover pool monitor will, however, at least every 3 months make its assessments related to the cover pool, liquidity, etc. and so on. And should the cover pool monitor suspect that there is a breach of certain requirements, it is obliged to inform the FSA as soon as possible. As mentioned previously, there is in fact a direct reference in the legislation to Article 129 in the CRR for OMF premium. It is also made clear that OMF premium corresponds to the label European Cover Bond Premium and thereby fulfills all relevant requirements. Article 129 specifies the potential collateral types that may be included in the cover pool. And as I have mentioned, Norwegian cover pools typically consists of residential mortgages. There is a small volume of commercial real estate and public sector, but no one has a cover pool consisting of ship loans. I hope you found this video on the Norwegian cover bond legislation interesting. For more information on the Norwegian cover bonds framework, please have a look at the ECBC webpage or look at the country chapter on Norway in the ECBC factbook. Thank you for your attention.